Hello, everybody. I watched the Maverick Party roll out on constitutional amendments. They got a list of 5. And while they sound really good on the surface, the issue we have here again, which no party wishes to address, and they say they have as well legal experts. However, the best legal experts in Canada, constitutional legal experts, I was in World Forum with them, the 2 best in Canada, who absolutely do not agree with the amendments being stated here. And as well as myself, the problem always comes down to we'd all love property rights, but Albertans, just Alberta alone, we're not going to go into the western provinces, but Albertans, you're the most settled and seated with Indigenous people. And you know what that means? Only 22% of Alberta is private property. That's it. I don't know if you're all familiar with that, and I know a great amount of education needs to be sent out to each and every one of you, and I don't hate Jay Hill. I'm sure his heart's in the right place, but Reform Party and many political parties seem to have a problem with, they like to grab what they call an expert, no matter what their credentials are, and it's just, oh, I'm an expert. An expert is somebody who's got absolutely a level of publication and accreditation worldwide. And anyone of accreditation and publication accepted as a factual basis on constitutional law for the country of Canada does not support that those amendments proposed are even going to meet the legal requirements of the Supreme Court, meaning the Supreme Court of Canada is going to throw them all out. Throw them all out. And you could say, hey, Dave, what do you know? You're not a lawyer. It's like, well, I have some of the greatest constitutional lawyers in the world, and I sat with the Supreme Court Justice for the United States. I also told you all exactly how Donald Trump was going to lose his court decisions and exactly what the court was going to say in literally one sentence. It's on my timeline, and, I don't have the great wording of it, but basically what I said in that sentence is exactly what the court ruled. Now, the only way I would know that is if I was absolutely in a room with those credible experts. And again, I just did the World Forum on Constitutional Law with the best minds in the world. And I'll tell you right now, the Canadian experts on that stage, one of which, yes, is in Montreal. He's leaving. He's been taken into the United States next year. But he will tell you he's been through all of this. He's done. Can't be done. It won't even make it through the Supreme Court of Canada because our legal system is bound to all of these things. The terms ceded and unceded land. Sure, Alberta is largely ceded, almost entirely it is. BC, not even close. Saskatchewan ceded, sure. Alberta has mass amounts of treaties, obligations requiring settlement. Have we settled Métis Nation? Sure. And fortunately for Alberta, not the rest of the provinces, Alberta's already done that, Albertans. We still have a mighty ways to go with our First Nations people. You want to talk absolute property rights, absolute transit with provinces? One, we have to get ceded, not the unceded situation resolved in BC. That means establishing which First Nations where, who are still in a battle, have not ceded the land. We never had a war. And the entire world watches this. Do you think the United States currently, who is absolutely 100% ceded with all of their American Indians, not only are they ceded, which Alberta is ceded treaty, They've settled all outstanding claims and all land claims. Absolutely. Self-government, self-determination. Do you ever hear an issue in the United States today? When we only are... Everybody there still, or did I lose you? Out in the sticks, I got bad reception here. Hopefully everybody's still there. Okay, getting into it here. I just finished with seated and unseated and USA. USA, self-determination, self-government, and absolute full authority over their resources in much more lands, 500 to 1, compared to First Nations in Canada. 500 to 1. We need to do it. We need to get it done. Then we can absolutely move on to absolute enshrined property rights for, we could do all Canadians, we could do all of Canada, but let's just say we just look at the Western narrative, or specifically the provincial narrative. We have to get all those claims settled. We have to settle with the First Nations, absolutely remove what's in place now, the Indian Act, everything. To do that, that requires First Nations. Now you've opened up 100% of Alberta, not 22, because the current amendment proposed by Maverick Party is only for 22% of Alberta. Do you think that means you can move your oil sands, transport it, pipelines, any of it, or get it onto a boat? Nope. Nope. It's not ceded land, you guys. Or it's ceded land, but it's treaty land. It doesn't belong to Albertans. It's locked in with the federal and provincial governments, depending on which land overlaps. But either way, Crown land, whether some are federal and some are provincial, most of the northern Wood Buffalo are all provincial. But when you go down into the Cold Lake region, you're absolutely talking federal. And they still both need to be ceded. We need to do that as this region, Alberta. We have to do all that. Settle the entire boundaries of Alberta, not 22%. And this is why people get laughed at. Political parties get laughed at, and legal experts go, holy smokes, because we're all a bunch of hillbilly dummies. That's what they think of us. That's what the world thinks of us. How smart are you? Because right now, we're in the same situation as China. Do you know that China, through its Communist Party, 0 property rights, for one, you have to lease there, but only less than, I think it's 17% of China is actual property for anybody. The rest, they don't let anybody have, because they're communists, they make that decision. But that's the same thing by about 3% for Alberta. 3 to 5% more is all we have. And people don't know this, and they make narratives, oh, we can do this, we can do that. No, you can't, because we have all this Crown land that is absolutely tied up with the Indian Act, because greedy, filthy politicians don't want to settle the claims. We're not talking about giving 82% over for all those people. We're talking about a fair deal for everybody, and that starts with First Nations. You shouldn't even be looking at a fair deal for Albertans, because that's only going to be 22% of Alberta. Did anyone ever tell you that? I bet you not. You're hearing it from me. And you could wait and let parties get in. You can pay donations to all of them. They can claim they have experts, but they're absolutely not going to get the rubber stamp from Lieutenant Governor on any bill or act they go to propose. Jason Kenney currently can't either. The last time a provincial premier, which was Ralph Klein, tried to get through something that overstepped that federal boundary, the Lieutenant Governor shot him down. That was Ralph Klein. Before that, more serious, and there's been a few times in history that a lot of you don't even know about, but you go back to Eberhart, and guess what happened? No, we're not going to stamp your bill, and in fact, we're sending you to the Supreme Court of Canada with your act and legislation, who absolutely kept shooting him down until Eberhart kept fighting, till he finally did eventually win a lieutenant governor. It took a very long time. I don't like the idea of waiting and waiting when I know that stamp's never going to come. or the Supreme Court of Canada is never going to rule it forward. Meaning it's all BS. Sorry, as it's currently presented, these amendments are BS. This is the education I want to do right across Canada. And it's kind of something I'm a little bit worried with Maverick Party. And it's Jay Hill is a Privy Council member. And again, they go back to the same reform narrative that didn't work before because it's illegal in Canada. And sure, you're going to upset people and everybody go, oh no, this isn't right. But look into it, everybody. Only 22% of Alberta is private property. That's all you have access to. You're locked out of the rest, just like Communist China locks out all their people. That's what you're under. USA, 100% accessible except for absolutely settled and defined American Indian reserves, which are considerably, massively more per person per capita than the First Nations in Canada. They have yet to be settled because the federal government doesn't want to. As long as there's this system of the Indian Act in place, nothing gets settled, and the government gets to absolutely rule over all of you with an iron hand. Your biggest enemy is only foreign influence because of our corrupt politicians and our corrupt political system. And as long as you allow people to treat you all stupid and ignorantly, because we are to a degree, nobody is bothered to educate you because our academic community in large margin is totally against you. They've been autocratized in the system taken over. Same with the media. It's all propagated. Canada's wonderful. You're all bad. You're be happy, third-class, ignorant citizen who doesn't know any better, doesn't know how the system works, doesn't demand constitutional changes that absolutely strengthen and empower you, and absolutely settling the First Nations. That's the first thing we have to do. Number one amendment. That's the number one. And all the other amendments come. But until you do that, all you're being tricked into is a very limited amount of what you can do. And further, absolutely no transit interprovincially. And the federal government loves it. The political parties provincially love it. And no matter what anyone tells you, nothing is ever going to change because they can't make it happen. And even if they forced it, if somehow we forced it and we brought up arms and we rebelled against Canada, you've got the entire world saying you are an absolute violation. It's a massive human rights violation. And they will turn on us faster than you can say, what the heck? That's reality. I don't pretend to profess to be the smartest. I went out and actually went and met the smartest in Canada, absolutely the top ranked number one and number two. Right here alive today, they have a proven track record, and of course both of them have been hired by the United States of America and have absolutely joined with the US. So that's what happens to all our greatest minds, our greatest talent, always ends up in greener pastures. However, they're still colleagues. I still have full access to them. I wouldn't lie to any of you guys about it. It's real. And until political parties stop playing in the propaganda or pretending that they've talked to experts when really they're just feeding you a bowl of shit soup and saying, here, eat this. Don't worry, we got this. But they're only giving you a small fraction of a truth when the reality is the greater truth that you need to know, you need to be made aware of, is absolutely what they're not giving you because they don't want you to know. And by the time you find out, it's too late. You've elected another party. You've been tricked into another narrative, and you're left holding an empty bag going, what? I thought you said you could get all this stuff done. Oh, no, I can't. Sorry. I had experts, just not the experts. I never bothered to even deal in any kind of real legal term that this country runs on, whether we like it or not. And that's what you all need to know. Get this shared out. Reach out to Jay Hill, because that's what we're talking about here. And not even with his proposed amendments that will absolutely fail with the Supreme Court, won't get stamped off, even if they got power, won't get stamped off by either a governor general or a lieutenant governor. That's provincially, even if whoever we get appointed, they won't stamp it off. They'll say that's going to the Supreme Court where you fail. That's reality. And even if we do get any kind of settlement, it's only going to be at the low, small 22% of Alberta, which absolutely locks us out of absolutely almost all the resources in Alberta. Sad, right? Settle the First Nations. Number one on the agenda. USA did. I don't see any major crying or people upset about it. I think they're doing well. That's been done absolutely since 1975. Thanks, everybody. Share it out. Get it out there. No transit, no property rights until we do that. At least nothing more than maybe 80%, at least for Alberta, 80%. It's terrifically much less for British Columbia, and they're not even seated. Way more unsettled claims. Way more. What do you think that means for us? More work, more money. What do you want to get into Alberta? This Western narrative, people talk about it, but at whose great expense? You know what I'm saying? Think about, get it out there. It won't matter anyway with the party I'm forming and coming forward with. We are going to have real, credible, and viable experts coming forward that nobody's going to be able to deny, and you're all going to be able to look, holy crap, that guy's published 86 books. He's world ranked. You know, people are going to go, whoa, that guy's taught in schools all over the world. Where's your expert? Who? Some guy from a law firm down the street? No constitutional expert, no track record, no publications, no academic standing whatsoever. That's what we're talking about here. People always trying to bamboozle. And I've listened to him. I listened to a supposed nuclear expert who didn't even understand the proliferation agreement of the UN that's bound to us. Canada's been bound to since 71. Absolutely. And we can't get out of it. We give away our enriched uranium like a byproduct, the number one source in the world. We're responsible, at least Saskatchewan's mine source of uranium is responsible for most of the nuclear weapons on this earth, powering nuclear reactors all over the world, not in Canada. Absolutely not in Canada. Never. Given away for pennies on the dollar because we're on proliferation. And our supposed Canada-wide nuclear expert didn't seem to understand this. I met him live. Huh? And he's written books. They didn't go nowhere. They're not out on a world stage, but they're in Canada, and people are like, this guy's number one. Well, maybe check with the nuclear community. This guy's nobody. Hate to say it. He's a guy who went to school, who wrote a book, and Canadians run around with it in Canada as a great propaganda tool. You gotta check on the world stage. That's what I do. I never trust anyone in Canada, especially if they've never been published outside of Canada or seen any real accreditation. Can't do it, won't do it. You know, this is the problem. We're all being grossly violated. We have been in this constitutional monarchy for a very, very long time. It has to stop. Somebody has to put up a party, and somebody has to go across Canada and educate the people and absolutely end all this BS. Get this shared out. Do it. Do it for your fellow Canadians. Do it for separatists. Do it for Albertans. Do it for all the provinces. Because that's what has to go out. And we have to stop with these false flag narratives. And we have to stop allowing people to come in and absolutely bullshit us. That's reality. That's what I aim to do. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.